Hey everyone, I want to welcome you all into the channel. I'm your host, Tony Handsome. This segment of Corruption Connection will be known as the Walk and Talk, where I take a walk around Vegas discussing different historical content in regards to organized crime, my life and time in the NYPD, as well as taking questions from you viewers. I hope you guys enjoy. If you would have asked me when I was growing up if I would have been a cop, the answer definitely would have been no. I grew up in New York City, the Flushing section of Queens. I mean, just like some kids in New York, I was quite adventurous. I gravitated towards the street life, hung around with a lot of street people, organized crime people, connected people, stuff like that. It's almost impossible to grow up in New York City and not rub shoulders or run into these people. You know, I had a fascination with organized crime and the Mafia and history. I'm a huge history buff. So I mean, the two just kind of intertwined and just kind of gave birth to this channel, I guess. The New York City subway system was definitely influential in my life in regards to me actually exploring the city as a whole, going to a lot of the neighborhoods where I shouldn't have been at a really young age, and just getting a real feel for what New York City was all about, you know? And if you ask the people I grew up with, I think they'd agree. I don't think anybody would ever imagine that I'd be a cop. However, you know, things in life happen and you get redirected. So I winded up getting redirected from the streets to the NYPD. I think the first time I took a train by myself, I was 12 years old. So it was always pretty interesting to me, the subway system. Growing up, like I said, I never would have thought I would have been a cop, much less be a cop in the New York City transit system, but that's where I wound up. I joined the New York City Police Department in 2013. I started my career in the Transit Bureau. During that time, we had something called Impact. It kind of paved the way for where my career would go as far as being placed in the Anti-Crime unit. However, growing up in New York City, I wasn't too shocked, you know, culture shock, I should say, to be a cop. It kind of came as secondhand nature to me. Throughout the way, there's a lot of things that I like to forget that I can't, and a lot of things that I can't forget that I'm happy I didn't forget. Unfortunately, some of the memories on the street, they're etched in your head forever. Throughout my tenure in the NYPD, I definitely have experienced corruption firsthand. I've seen it. We all know it exists. Does corruption exist in every department? I think so. Was the NYPD corrupt from its birth? Yes. Is it still corrupt? Yes. I'm a historian. I love history, and there's nothing more classic than American mob history. It's really a part of American history. You can't talk about cowboys and Indians and the early settlers without talking about organized crime. They built this country, whether you think so or not. I mean, organized crime is American history. And there's a reason why the Mob Museum is named the National Museum of Organized Crime and Law Enforcement. The two intertwined, they intermingled. Whether we like to believe so or not, whether we think so or not, they were extremely intertwined. One hand washes the other, right? The old saying. That definitely rang true with the mob and law enforcement. Without the help of corrupt law enforcement and politicians, places like the Gold Spike would have never been built. Down the block, the El Cortez, the way we're heading, never been built. It was the mobsters that had the dream. I mean, Vegas itself wouldn't exist if it wasn't for corruption. Places like this, the El Cortez, still has Bugsy Siegel's restaurant in Siegel's 1941, named after him. The influence of the mob is still alive in Vegas. It's never left, if you ask me, it's just transformed. Hey everyone, if you're enjoying this video, please click the like button below and make sure to subscribe to the channel. Thank you. Now let's get back to Corruption Connection. Before joining the NYPD, I spent the majority of my life in the restaurant industry. working at different locations around Brooklyn, Manhattan, Queens. Throughout my time in the restaurant industry is where I made a lot of connections. Upper echelon members of law enforcement, politicians, governor, mayor, I met them all, city council member, you name it. You know, I think that was also a catalyst to kind of get me to join the NYPD because, you know, I was so comfortable with those people. When people were saluting them, you know, I was calling them by their first names. I had a lot of hooks, as they call them. You know, hooks are just certain connections to the top that you have within the department. Captain so-and-so, Commissioner so-and-so, Deputy Commissioner so-and-so. I knew them all on a first name basis. We knew each other on a first name basis. After learning about my interest in becoming a cop, these friends of mine in these high positions in law enforcement immediately tried to recruit me to be an undercover. Going undercover in the police academy against fellow NYPD members, cops, and trying to ward out corruption, basically informing. I thought about it, but it just wasn't me. I couldn't inform on people. It's just not in me. Although I declined to go undercover for them this time, it wouldn't be the last time they asked me to go undercover. I'll talk about that at a later time. However, undercover work just wasn't for me. I wanted to do something where I didn't have to wear a uniform, but at the same time, people knew who I was, you know? After I put the cuffs on them, they knew I was a cop. Not an undercover where you have to go down with the bust, pretend you're one of them, pretend you're a criminal. It was gonna be impossible for me. Too many people knew me within New York City. I had too many friends, I hung out in too many places. So undercover work for me was just an impossibility. However, plainclothes work, which is basically police presence in street clothes, civilian clothes, etc. Sometimes you dress up, maintenance workers, whatnot. But that seemed more fitting to me. And the transit unit had one of the best plainclothes units in the whole department. So that's where I wanted to be. Being plainclothes in transit was fantastic because you had free reign of the city. You hopped on a train and you could go wherever you wanted to go. Find myself starting out the day in Queens, winding up in Manhattan, touching Brooklyn before I came back and ended my tour. And at that time, no body cameras, limited supervision. We really did have a free reign of the city. Went anywhere I wanted, just hopped on a train. That's all it took. If I had to summarize what it was like being a plainclothes cop in the New York City transit system, I'd compare it to the movie Money Train with Wesley Snipes and Woody Harrelson. We dealt with a lot of stuff that they dealt with. Rapes, sadistic people, sexual abuse, forcible touching, reckless endangerment. It's just a slew of crimes that go on in the tunnel. A lot of people are just really unaware to all the dangers within the New York City subway system. There are a lot. Throughout my career, I'd say I've been involved in at least 500 arrests. About 100 of those I made personally. An assortment of crimes that take place down in the subway system. Ranging from petty violations and misdemeanors like unsafe riding, walking between the train cars while the train is moving and/or stopped at that time. Fare evasion, entering the subway system without paying, to the more serious felonies like sexual abuse, aggravated sexual abuse, and criminal possession of a weapon. Almost everyone in New York City has a weapon. The reason I know this? Bag checks. The NYPD imposed certain sanctions within the New York City transit system that dictate certain rules to the riders. And one of those rules is that they can be randomly searched upon entry into the New York City subway system. So as a uniformed officer, we used to perform bag checks all the time. What we were mainly looking for were bombs and stuff like that, but we would come across all sorts of things. Later on during the channel, I'll definitely release some pictures of some of the stuff that I found. It'll make you laugh, but at the same time, make you really scared. But I've got a bunch of wild and crazy stories about my time as a cop in the New York City transit system. I hope you guys continue to watch. Tune in next time as I discuss my first arrest and the time I stopped a 14-year-old boy from killing his whole family. As always, I'm your host, Tony Handsome, and this is Corruption Connection. Thanks for watching. If anyone has any comments or questions, please be sure to leave them in the comment section below.